It's why you'll often hear people say, I was given premium bonds, or I remember being given them. I've never won anything.
Yeah.
It's probably true because
Yeah.
the maths are not on your side at those low amounts. Hello and welcome back to the Personal Investor Podcast. I'm Ed Monk and I'm joined today by Tom Stevenson, Investment Director here at Fidelity. And we're going to be talking about the most popular way to save money in the UK, and that is premium bonds. Some 22 million of us hold premium bonds, but should we? Are they a good deal or are they a hiding to nothing? Is your money better off in other cash savings or investments instead? That's what we'll try to answer today. Tom, welcome along. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Ed.
Premium bonds. They're not exactly cash accounts. They're not exactly investments either. So what are they?
What is a prize draw, essentially? You give your money to the government. Each premium bond has a face value of £1. You actually have to invest £25 minimum at a time, but you can invest up to £50,000, and we'll come onto the pros and cons of doing that. But essentially, you're buying a ticket in a prize draw, and every month there are prizes ranging between £25 and £1 million. Obviously, there aren't many £1 million prizes.
There's two
a month, is it? Yeah, and rather more of the smaller ones. So it sort of it has some of the elements of a savings account. You may or may not get a return on it, but it is essentially a prize draw. So you may get nothing at all.
That's right. And so people will often use it as a sort of something to compare with savings accounts, because there can be that regular return coming in every month, but it's not guaranteed, as you say. You use the word invest because it sort of feels like you're investing for a chance of something, and that feels more like an investment, but it's more akin to cash. You'll often hear that they're government backed. You said you're giving your money to the government. That's because they're issued by NS&I, National Savings and Investments. That's the government backed savings provider. That's important because that dictates somewhat how the rates that, not just premium bonds, but all NS&I products, the rates that they pay. NS&I has a target of raising money, and that money is collected in NS&I, and it's available to use by the government, right? And people don't often understand it, but it's a sort of source of funding for the government, right? And NS&I will have targets for how much money they want to say or want to kind of raise, and that's where they kind of calibrate their rates.
Well, that's right, and in that regard, they're no different really from a commercial bank, which will decide that they want to raise more money, or they don't want to raise as much money for whatever reasons, and that will determine the amount of interest that they're prepared to pay. And the government is the same in that regard. If they meet their target, then they're going to pay a lower rate of interest because they don't want to, there's less incentive for them to encourage people to put their money into premium bonds.
And it's not always obvious why they wouldn't just raise lots and lots of money that way if it's a cheap source of funding for them. But there are also guardrails for NS&I. They're not supposed to distort the market for savings accounts. So they'll often be quite competitive when they want to raise money. But when they hit that target, they'll become uncompetitive again because they obviously, the government sees the worth of a healthy savings market and competition between those providers.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's quite important because that effectively puts a cap on how much you're ever going to earn from a premium bond, because the government is never going to pay a rate of interest, in inverted commas, much greater than you can get on a savings account with a bank.
Yeah, we're going to get onto all of that and how competitive they are or not a bit later on. And there's no interest rate on premium bonds. They're a prize draw. But there is something called an annual prize fund rate. Tell us a bit about that.
So that is an effective interest rate. So essentially, the government will hand out a certain amount of pounds in prizes, and if you divide that by the amount of money that they have raised from savers, then that will give you an equivalent interest rate. So at the moment, it's 3.8%.
Yeah.
It's actually gone down a bit in line with interest rates for the reasons that we've explained. It moves up and down. So it's actually a bit lower than it was. But that doesn't mean that you as an individual will always get 3.8%
Not at all.
on
No.
the money that you've put in. As we said, it is a prize draw, so you might get a lot more. You might get nothing at all.
Yeah, there's loads to unpack with that prize run fund rate figure. That's like a very, very crude average. So if you added up all the prizes that were paid divided by all the people holding bonds, 3.8% is where it lands.
But it's a notional figure, completely notional
and
figure.
It includes all the people getting £1 million for their £1 ticket. So there's loads of work that's done. It sounds like it should be simple, premium bonds and the maths, but it's not simple. And Money Saving Expert, we should name check them, because they're kind of all the good stuff that's out there on premium bonds is done by them, it seems. And in order to get that prize fund rate, you need to have an average amount of luck. But not only that, your level of savings, the amount of premium bonds you actually hold, have to be above a certain point. So you can kind of generate a figure through all these complicated maths where it becomes statistically more likely than not that you will get the 3.8% as it currently is.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what happens is that the return that you are likely to receive will gravitate towards that 3.8% the more that you have invested. So we mentioned that 50,000 limit on how much you can invest in premium bonds. You need probably, I think the figure is about £20,000 to start to get close to that prize draw rate, the 3.8% at the moment. So anywhere between 20,000 and 50,000, you're likely, if you have the average luck, to get somewhere around that figure. But anything below that, then it becomes more of a lottery, really. You may or you may not.
Which is slightly at odds with the kind of image that we all have of premium bonds. Premium bonds will often be the very first financial product that you hold in your name, right? Because they're often given as gifts to children in small amounts. It's a nice thought. A pretty useless financial decision, isn't it? Because that's not inflation proof at all. And as we're hopefully making clear, if you only hold small amounts, a few hundred or thousand even, you're actually really unlikely to get even the average rate of return, and you probably won't get anything at all. It's why you'll often hear people say, I was given premium bonds, or I remember being given them. I've never won anything.
Yeah.
It's probably true, because the maths are not on your side at those low amounts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something like 20,000 to 1, the chance for any of those individual premium bonds to actually win a prize, which is not great odds. I mean, if and there must be so many of us who have 10, 20, 30 pounds worth of premium bonds somewhere sitting around, and the chances are we haven't won anything.
No, indeed. But let's assume that you've got an amount large enough that if you get the average amount of luck, you're going to get that 3.8% or that prize fund rate. We can compare that to other similar products, can't we? Cash savings, and we can compare it to inflation as well. That's an important consideration, because your £1 held in a premium bond stays £1, isn't it? So it will get eroded by inflation. 3.8% is the premium bonds prize fund rate. The best deal you can get on cash, currently speaking, we're talking in the end of May 2025. Currently the best rate on cash is about 5%. So some way above that premium bonds rate. They do beat inflation, but actually, as of last week, you've been on holiday, Tom, so you might not even know this, but last week inflation for April came in at 3.5%. Big jump in inflation. So actually not a good deal against cash, and only just beating inflation. So they're not all that competitive right now. Yeah,
so it kind of sits between the two, doesn't it? I mean, I think the best sort of instant access account outside an ISA is about 4.8%. It's a little bit more, maybe 4.85 in an ISA. And as you say, 3.5% inflation is barely beating that. So, you can get a guaranteed return of maybe a percentage point more than you can
Yeah.
get on your premium bonds at the moment, and you're only just beating inflation. So on the face of it, they've been more attractive in the recent past.
Well, yeah, that's a good point to make. They have. It's not always been like this. I was looking. We regularly cover what's going on with premium bonds, and I was looking at the rates that they pay or have paid on average versus cash rates as represented by the Bank of England rates. Are not a perfect comparison for the best cash you can get, but not bad. So how were they comparing against the Bank of England rate and also against CPI inflation as well? And you can see that there were long periods going back to about 2010. There were long periods when premium bonds did much better than cash rates, actually. Again, with all those caveats around average luck and or what have you. But that would have been the time to really hold them. But the problem was that even then, both cash and premium bonds were paying much less than inflation.
Yeah.
So that was a problem. And then the rates started to pick up, and then cash rates have sort of overtaken premium bonds. So yes, premium bonds are slightly ahead of inflation, but not ahead of cash. So it's hard to find the time when you get a sweet spot for premium bonds. It does happen. It does happen. And for those reasons, it can be, or for those periods, it can be worth going for it.
But as you say, for most of that long period of time, the returns from premium bonds with average luck have been less than inflation, and that's the problem with all cash savings. Is that in the long run, you're unlikely to beat inflation by
you get pockets, don't you? Pockets where it does. Right now, for example, 5% on cash is still some way clearer of inflation. But there is another aspect, a final aspect and feature of premium bonds that will actually, a couple of things I want to mention. One is the tax treatment on them, because cash interest potentially attracts tax. Doesn't have to if you hold it in an ISA, but outside of an ISA, you'll pay some tax. That obviously is the same as is also the case with investments as well.
You may pay some tax because there is an annual allowance depending on your tax rate. I mean, I think if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you get £1,000 a year interest, tax free. 40% taxpayer, £500. If you pay the highest 45% tax rate, you don't get any.
That's right. Good point.
So it's a small.
So there's a small allowance for cash interest. But if you're the kind of person who fills up their ISA allowance with investments, say, or other cash savings, I suppose, and is looking for a home that's kind of cash equivalent, sort of, outside of ISAs, then premium bonds aren't necessarily a bad choice because the prizes do not attract tax. So
if you're getting 3.8%, if you've got enough in there that you are gravitating towards that prize draw figure of currently 3.8%, then you can you can give that an uplift for the effective tax you've saved. Yeah,
although there becomes a point where actually you'd be better off in a high paying cash account and just sucking up the tax, maybe if it's that much better. You kind of have to look at it on a case by case basis. The other thing is something around how it works. We've mentioned NS&I and that being a government backed service. Lots of people, particularly in the years around the financial crisis, were very concerned about bank safety. There are guardrails and there are rules around your money being protected within banks. It's less of a worry these days, but for some people, I guess being backed by the government is a reassurance, isn't it? It can't go bust. It's a bit like people buying gilts. You're going to get your money back one way or the other because it's backed by the government.
Yes, that's true. Although, of course, you do have this £50,000 limit on premium bonds, and your bank deposits are protected to actually a higher level than that. 85%. 85,000, I think it is.
That's true. But in terms of the safety of it, that's a feature that's
of course,
Okay. In conclusion, then, if we're wrapping this up, not really a very good deal on premium bonds, if we're honest. Unless you have that tax issue, but even then, the other kind of qualifiers have to be in place, don't they? A big enough amount of money that you're going to get the rate, and that tax issue, so you've got big savings elsewhere. It really narrows down the appeal, actually, when it comes to making a kind of rational financial decision around premium bonds.
I don't think it makes a huge amount of rational sense to do it at the moment. But for some people, just the prospect of that small
Yeah.
chance of the £1 million prize.
I'm going to confess to having that urge myself. Yeah, I
You
still
know, I
hold
mean,
them.
that would be great, wouldn't it? You know,
It would be, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that is a consideration.
That is a consideration. Okay, well, that just about covers it. I'll say here that if you found any of this interesting, if you're watching or listening to us, please do hit the like button, maybe even subscribe to the channel, or share it, or leave a review for us. It's going to help a lot more people find this content. That is it for now, Tom. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ed.